Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef The Alter Nerd, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to The Dose, The Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye. And oh my goodness, yeah, let's jump into this madness, shall we? Because has Meghan Markle broken the law by mislabeling her as ever champagne? What the deuce is going on here? Now, snaps and claps goes to this user on X, at Peleni1, for actually putting me on this path down the rabbit hole, and says the following: Merkel breaking the trademark laws again. If it wasn't made in Champagne, France, it's illegal. And technically, that's true. So here, Champagne Noir refers to the méthode champenoise, and if I've mispronounced the French stuff, I apologise. I am not French. I am Yorkshire and Italian. But even when I try and speak Italian, even when I try and speak English, my pronunciation sometimes is absolutely shocking. So French, yeah, not got a hope in freaking hell. I failed French for a reason. I mean, come on, guys. Anywho, now this is a traditional method for making sparkling wine, but it's now legally restricted to be called champagne for wines that are only made in the Champagne region of France, right? So elsewhere, you've got to label the bottle as either the traditional method or the method traditionnelle. And so when we look at this right here, yeah, we see that it's the as ever bottle, méthode champenoise. Thing is, though, the geographical location on the label is not France. It's not Champagne in France. No. It's Napa Valley 2021. And so reading this bit here from Peleni1, I thought, you know what? Let me dig into this a little bit further. Let's really expand on what this law is all about. And shiz the bed. On the face of it, what Megxie has done here potentially could be illegal. Why? Yes, it is illegal to label a product méthode champenoise if it was made in the USA, because I Googled, is it illegal to call a product méthode champenoise if it was made in America, if it was made in the USA? And Google says, yes, it is illegal to label a bottle méthode champenoise if it's made in the USA, which here it clearly is stating it is. Napa Valley 2021. It's Napa Valley, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, is in the USA. Definitely ain't next door to me in France. That is for damn certain. And the reason why it's illegal to call a product méthode champenoise if it's made anywhere else in the world other than in France Champagne is because the term is now protected under international trade agreements, primarily for wines from the Champagne region of France. The European Union and many other countries, including America, including the United States, have agreed to protect the term champagne and méthode champenoise to prevent consumer deception. So why is this term protected? The term champagne is exclusively reserved for sparkling wine that is produced in the Champagne region of France according to specific rules. And a 2006 trade agreement between the US and the EU prohibits new American wineries from using the name champagne or méthode champenoise. And the regulations aim to ensure that consumers are not misled and can accurately identify the product's origin and the authenticity of what they are buying. Now, sparkling wine made in the USA can only be labelled as sparkling wine, which we're not seeing here. This is a wine made in America, Napa Valley 2021, but it's not called sparkling wine, it's called méthode champenoise. Now, this is the bit where we went even further down the rabbit hole on this. Because at the bottom here, it says the following. Some older American brands that used the term champagne before 2006 were grandfathered in, but must include their geographic origin. So what that means is, if you have a winery, if you have a company that produces the wine, and before 2006, you were in America and you were producing sparkling wine in America, calling it champagne, this, that, and the other, then if you have that history of calling your sparkling wine champagne prior to 2006, then you're still allowed to call it that up until this point because you're grandfathered in, yeah? But this is the thing, right? We know that Meg's brand As Ever was launched this year. And not before 2006. So Meg's brand As Ever is not grandfathered in, is not the exception to the rule there. But I thought, you know what? Let's go further down the rabbit hole here. Let's take that out of the equation because we know Meg's and her brand As Ever is not creating this quote-unquote champagne, right? We know, just like all of her other products, she's outsourcing it to another company, right? That makes it for her and just sticks her label on it. Yeah? Now, Googling which manufacturer is creating Meghan Markle's champagne for her As Ever brand, this came up. Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand As Ever has released a sparkling wine in collaboration with a specific Napa Valley winery, which is reportedly the Fair Winds estate. The wine is a 2021 vintage Napa Valley brew, produced using the traditional Méthode Champenoise. So, digging into the Fair Winds estate, I found out that it's been called other names in the past, okay? So, the winery itself, where Fair Winds estate is based, was actually opened all the way back in 1969. And it was originally called the Calistoga Winery. Then in 1979, it was bought out again and it was renamed the Couvazon. And if I've mispronounced that, I apologise. It wasn't until 2015 that it was bought out again and is now known the name that it's at now, which is Fair Winds Estate. So, the estate overall, the winery overall, right, has been active prior to 2006, where the rule is that some American brands that use the term champagne before 2006 were grandfathered in. But if you're going to call it champagne, you've got to include your geographic origin on the bottle label, right? So when I looked into the original winery of Calistoga that was opened back in 1969, I found out that yes, indeed, they did make champagne and used the method champenoise to do so. Now, in 1979, when they were bought out by Couvazon, I was like, okay, well then did they continue making this champagne? They didn't. They didn't. It wasn't until 2015 that it was bought again and renamed to Fair Winds Estate, where they're now producing champagne again under their Method Champagne label, right? And so the question here, right, is has Megxi and her brand As Ever broken the law by potentially mislabeling one of her products as Method Champenoise when the champagne wasn't created and produced in France, in Champagne, but was created and produced in the USA, in Napa Valley, where the rules clearly state that unless it's created in France Champagne, you can't call sparkling wine champagne. The only loophole is if the US winery in question created and called their product champagne prior to 2006. which the original winery, Calistoga, did back in 1969, but Cuvée, who took over in 1979, stopped production of it. You see where I'm coming from here? So, going back to where we're at now with Fair Winds Estate, has Megxie and her branders ever broken the law by mislabeling one of her products as Méthode Champenoise? So for me, do you know what? The jury's out on this one. Because, to be honest, the original winery, Calistoga in 1969, as I explained, did produce champagne. Called it champagne and labelled Méthode Champenoise based on my research that I found, right? But since then, new wineries have taken over. The one in 1979, Calistoga, they stopped producing champagne. But then in 2015, Fair Winds Estate, they started to produce champagne again and labelling their bottles as such. So, would Fair Winds Estate be treated as a new entity, unable to label their product as champagne? Or would they be treated as the same entity as Calistoga, the original winery, and be able to take advantage of that grandfathered rule that I mentioned? I mean, they do seem to be following that grandfather rule by labelling the wine as Méthode Champenoise, but underneath confirming its geographic origin, which in this case is Napa Valley. I mean, this is a grey area because the original company that owned the winery started to make champagne, labelled it as champagne, right? Prior to 2006 when this new rule came in. 1979, they get bought out. A new company takes over the winery. They stop making champagne. It's not until 2015 that the current owners come in and then start making champagne again and labelling it as champagne. So are they able to label it as champagne because they're technically grandfathered in? Because the original winery back in 1969, Calistoga, made champagne, used the Méthode Champenoise to do so and labelled their bottles as such? Or are they not allowed because either they're treated as a new entity, a new company, after 2006, after the new rules came in that says you can only label it as champagne if it comes from France, from the Champagne region? Are they excluded from being allowed to label it as Méthode Champenoise? Because Cuvée, who took over in 1979, stopped production of champagne. And no champagne then was released by Cuvée from that winery from 1979 all the way up to at least 2015. So years after the new rule came in 2006. That you can only label it as champagne if it comes from France, Champagne region. You see where I'm coming from there? This is a little bit of a grey area. So, are they breaking the law or not? I mean, I'm just asking for a friend here, right? What do you guys think? So with that being said, those watching live, whether on YouTube or on X, exactly where you are, I'm not done with you guys yet. But if you haven't done so already, do make sure for more misadventures of the gruesome twosome, you subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe here on YouTube. If you're watching on X, make sure you're following me at Stef Alter Nerd, like, share. And for those watching on the replay, comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theory, whatever. Based on everything that I've given you, all the information, the rabbit hole I went down on. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think they're breaking the law or not? Now, at a push, right, you really had to force an answer out of me. I have to admit, I don't think so. It's a bit of a grey area on this one, given the history of this winery estate and whatnot. But I don't think so. I think the owners of this winery surely would know the legalities of when they can call it champagne and when they can't, right? You got to think that they've got to know that, yeah. What do you guys think? Again, it's a bit dodgy, a bit of grey area. What do you guys think? Those watching on the replay, let me know in the comments down below. Again, those watching live, stay exactly where you are. But for those on the replay, thank you so, so much for tuning in. I appreciate all your faces. And until the next time, you guys, laters.